Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Weebtoons. I know you're probably wondering where is her co-host, but today I will not be joined by Bambi. I am actually joined by a special guest, and Bambi will not be here because we are mainly discussing horror manga. And so I will allow my special guest to introduce themselves.
Hi guys, I am, as you may have remembered from the last one, Khoumie, aka Dark Matrix, and I will be joining Sonile tonight to talk about horror manga.
So, before we get into what it is specifically that we'll be discussing today, which is horror manga, so Kumi, tell us where exactly or when did your love for horror begin?
My relationship with horror has been an up and down one. Of course, like any normal kid, I grew up with, being afraid of horror and stuff. But I grew up in a house where everyone was like super interested in that stuff. So I eventually got into body horror franchises like The Thing, The Fly, Alien, and all that stuff. And it kind of like stuck to me. I'm more on the artistic side, so seeing different aspects of humanity kind of makes me feel good in the weirdest way possible. And I don't know, just all those different aspects, invasion of the body snatchers, anything to do with an alien trying to be in the human society and that stuff kind of opened the gates into me, liking horror in general.
Yeah. Was that like what was maybe when we talk about anime, what was the first thing that you had watched that was horror and you liked it?
Oof, the first thing that was horror and I liked it. Oh, I can't really say it was horror per se that got me into horror itself. I once upon a time I saw Ghost in the Shell, the very very old Ghost in the Shell, and it's cyberpunky, and cyberpunk kind of has like a subgenre of body horror again. So seeing the human body do things it's not supposed to be doing, seeing people separated, decimated, and stuff. Seeing Akira had a lot of morphing and stuff, and that kind of body horror opened me up into the other like franchises. I'd say the only like official, the first official horror I got into was Parasite, if that counts.
I think it does. And then in terms of manga, what would be the first horror manga that you read that just had you on the edge of your seat?
This one, unmistakably, Junji Ito's Uzumaki was the first. Like I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't really think of it in the context of horror. I just kind of like, this is going to be weird. And I kind
Yeah.
of went in with a, oh, this is going to be JoJo's Bizarre Adventures weird, and it kind of was. But like with horror, you see, Junji's like, I think Junji takes whatever Araki takes, and he just like takes it to 1000 with the horror aspect to it. Seeing an eyeball spiral through someone's skull to the back of it, seeing grotesque mutilations of bodies and morphing into giant snails, all that stuff. It was a riveting experience, to say the
Yeah.
least.
I understand concerning, Junji Ito. Most of his collection, it's quite questionable. I'm currently in his collection. I think the volume that I am currently on, it should be Uzumaki because I was like trying to like, go through them in order and whatnot. And it's quite, if I could say, creepy to see, the guy's obsession with like spirals and all of that. And so, I think for me, where my love for horror began, I know people are like tired of hearing me talk about how much I love horror because it's literally in every episode. But I feel,
No.
you know, every genre in its own can tell a story, right? But like I feel for horror, it's almost quite unpredictable. And for me, I feel it's the best version of telling a story. I'm not talking about, everyone dying or something. No, but like it it's a unique way of telling a story. It could be in a game or like anime or manga specifically. It doesn't really matter, but like I just find it extremely interesting, you know. And so
I get what you mean.
yeah, and so like into what it is specifically that, we're currently reading, you could, just tell us what you're reading, and then also maybe you could explain a bit in case some of our listeners haven't really had the chance to read it.
Oh, okay. I was going to give a disclaimer, but you guys are this far in, and I don't think that's necessary anymore. So I am reading about three horror manga at the moment, although I think only two of them are like traditional horror. The first one is Bibliomania. This is, I'm not sure when it was released, but the story is very simplistic as it starts, but gets very, very strange. I'm pretty sure it was nominated for a big award in 2019, but I don't know. Most people haven't read it, I guess. So this girl, this young child, wakes up in this blank room and sees a strange door in the corner. That's the only thing in the room. So she approaches it, and as she's approaching it, this weird serpentine creature like peeks over her right shoulder, and then it's it says, "You must leave this room. You must not leave this room." It tells her to stay. It tells her that she shouldn't leave, and then it's very kind about it. She questions it and wants to leave because it's a very weird experience, but she can't she can't do that, as she's told later, because of certain rules. Those rules are, if you've watched, I think, Infinity Train. Yeah, it was a Cartoon
Mhm.
Network series, Infinity Train. It kind of has the same concepts is the way doors work. So those doors are like, I want to say pseudo interdimensional doors, but they kind of go to different rooms. Basically, it's a supernatural hotel trope, and then that's her room, the starting point. To escape, she has to find the room with the exit, or the door that leads to the exit. But every time she leaves the door, her body starts to disintegrate, leaving behind like bone, and I guess eventually not leaving any like flesh material at all afterward. So she's still filled with the drive to leave the place, but she can't for those obvious hindrances. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's drama, fantasy, very post-apocalyptic. Every room has its own like unique set of characters who are there for their own reason, and are kind of the rooms are like their own little torture fantasies, I'd say. For example, there's a character who really disliked this a bully of his in high school, but then he wanted the bully uh, to die actually, and then yeah, that's his fantasy. In his room, he gets to see that bully go through several deaths, and that goes on. Of course, the other challenges get way more creative, to say the least. But yeah, you should check it out.
Sorry, the one where the guy has fantasies of him seeing his bully die. Like, how is that happening? Like, does he have like little doors or something, and then he like envisions how this guy is going to die, or it's just like,
Oh, no, no, he kind of sees it. It's like the room generates reality, I'd say itself. It's super, like that kind of supernatural.
that's your second read?
That's my first read.
Oh,
Well, currently reading uh, PTSD Radio is the other horror manga I'm reading, and you suggested it to me some weeks back,
yeah,
and I actually went
very
into it.
creepy.
And quite frankly, I have to say this is a really, really good like horror manga. And I want
Yeah.
to say general manga too. So like it's super creative with how the author wrote it, and there's some real life controversy that kind of adds the, how horror stories are always like this is based on a true story. Or this one is super. It takes that and then it feels genuine because the overall story is kind of about this I want to say hair demon, or a demon that has to do with hair. I say
I
yeah.
think
So
it's
every
about some hair god.
all right, hair god who is just cruel and stuff. But what I like most, I wasn't really into it due to the fact that it's about a hair god. But what actually kept me there was just the way the chapters were arranged and how they kind of told the story. Because in the very beginning, it's called PTSD Radio. just
Mm-hmm.
to reiterate that. And in the very beginning, there's this radio that's kind of made out of flesh and human facial features lying on a counter, like going through different channels. Now you know how traditional radios are, where you have a tuning dial and then it goes into different stations, and then you
Yeah.
kind of tap into a little bit of what the original program was, or you come in for the news or something like that. Yeah, it literally structures every chapter in that way. The first chapter is 89.27 hertz. Second chapter is 64.98 hertz. And if you read them, it kind of feels like like none of the stories are connected at all, except through maybe here. And then it's four different stories, but along the way, you kind of start to realize the stories are linked. And the chapters are titled, 89 point. The first one's 89.2, and then the next one that follows that story is 89.28, and then it's an immediate continuation from where you left off in the story. So the story kind of goes through different time frames of the characters' journeys through whatever it is they're experiencing, and different perspectives of different characters. But as you
Yeah.
go further, the stories kind of start to interlink, and different characters start to meet, and it all finally, meshes together. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see a conclusion to that because at some point the author stopped writing about these stories and started writing about an author who moved to the city and was writing a horror manga. And then he started to hear voices in his house, and other weird things started to happen. And he physically claims that he was haunted by said ghost if he kept on working on this manga. And
I'm not
thus
even
he
going to lie.
abruptly stopped it where it ends.
That's the main reason as to why I started it, because I was like, I really, really want to see what it is exactly that, made this man start seeing things. And I was like, well, I get it because most of, the manga is extremely creepy. Like there's jump scares in most of the volumes that are there. It's quite creepy, to be honest. I was like, why are these people so obsessed with the hair? But then it's all centered around, the hair god. But I get why he
Right.
stopped. But then he has to come back because we need him. Like he needs to finish it. So
You don't care if he's cursed?
I mean, I'm not trying to say we don't care about that, but we need him. But
The
away
show
from
must
that,
go on.
away from that, what's your third current read?
My third current read has been a long read. I'll admit this has been on the backlog for months, several months. Chiwo Wadachi, also known as Blood on the Tracks. This one isn't conventional horror. It's actually the art style itself, and just the flow of the story is pretty slow and very self-contained. It follows a very normal, seemingly normal family in the first chapter, except they go to this family meeting, and this boy goes with his mother and his cousin, who's very energetic, and then his cousin's running through the woods, goes to the edge of a cliff, sort of, and is like playing around there. Then the mother shouts to like stop her nephew from jumping or falling off or anything, and then he is about to fall, but then she kind of saves him, sort of stops him from falling. But for some unknown reason, for a moment she pauses and then she looks back at her son, and then they share this brief moment of silence, and then she pushes her nephew off the cliff. The boy falls but isn't dead. He's paralyzed for some time, but then he comes out and recovers. He doesn't remember anything. So the only people who witnessed that event were the mother and her son, the main character. So the chapters that follow suit afterwards are of him trying to grasp exactly what happened in that whole event, because it kind of takes him through the trauma of what is happening, and then the story slowly unfolds to show what's actually happening. And his mother is super like obsessed with him, like to uncomfortable levels, the point she constantly fights with her husband and wins out everyone who even walks near her. But she's the thing like he's the thing that she prizes the most. and she ends up smothering him and choking him through life. And it's yeah, it kind of bends towards the it's more
That's
psychological horror, if anything.
crazy. You know what that reminds me of? The part where you said, I think she like pushed him and then he fell and then he got paralyzed and whatnot, and then when he woke up he couldn't remember. That reminds me of Game of Thrones because I'm not even going to lie, it
Oh,
sounds it sounds just like that because there was a boy who witnessed something that was quite crazy, and then like he was pushed off of this like tower, and then he like got paralyzed, and then he couldn't remember anything. So that's what it reminded me of. But that description was wow. Who knew? What did you say the name of it was?
English name is Blood on the Tracks.
We'll try our best to check it out and not be traumatized. Okay, I guess it's my turn. So, three
It
things
is.
that I am currently reading. I think the first one that you had mentioned is PTSD Radio. Um, yeah, so I'm also currently reading that. I think I should be like on volume four. I should check, but it should be somewhere there. So, yeah, I think you had already explained that one. And the next one is um under Junji Ito's manga collection. At the moment, I should be reading Uzumaki. That's the one that I currently should be reading. But then I think the chapter that I'm currently on, besides that one, is there's that girl who had like holes on her body and she was always complaining about insects and whatnot. I don't know if you
Oof.
remember it, but that really just triggered my trypophobia because I hate seeing so many holes on like one freaking you get my point. It was so I honestly that's why I like stopped it and went to Uzumaki because that was freaking creepy. I just cannot.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And then the other manga that I'm reading is what's let me try and like find it. It's called Kurosagi Shitai Takuhai Bin. But then it's basically Kurosagi's corpse delivery service. So what it's mainly about is these people who find a corpse and they basically take it where it wants to go. So among them, there's a guy who can speak to the dead. There's one who can find a corpse using his pendulant, I think. There's a girl who can like embalm them to like, prevent composition. And then there's a girl who's like the leader and stuff. Yeah, that's like I've forgotten what the other guy does. I guess he just exists. But that's the whole description that I can give without like giving any spoilers. It's really good. I would really love to see like an adaptation for this manga. Like it's really good. You guys should like just go and read it. I know it's horror, but just read it. So yeah. Moving on from what it is that we're reading, for the listeners, what is it exactly that what manga would you recommend to them? Something that you want them to read.
Ooh. I was kind of waiting for you to explain Uzumaki because you didn't, but sure. Um, there's quite a lot I would suggest to them. This is manga only because I have like a few anime I'd like to throw in.
Mm. Yeah, oh no,
Yeah,
it's just manga only.
manga only. Okay. So if you're new to the horror genre, you could check out Miyoroku-chan, which I'm pretty sure last year got an anime adaptation. This one is, it's modern Japanese occultism. Its art style is very similar to that of Jujutsu Kaisen in terms of the ghosts and monsters. So basically, it's about this teenage girl who develops this ability randomly to see ghosts. And unlike other shows, which will make ghosts seem like positive creatures. No, no. Every single ghost here is some grotesque being that should not be dealt with. Now the twist here is that she isn't some a fiery spirited protagonist who goes through anything. No, no, she like any normal person is trying to avoid this being in her life, but she can't do much. So she lives every single day trying to avoid showing that she can see the ghosts. That way, the ghosts won't interact with her. And yeah, so the drama of the story is basically her getting in worse situations due to her friends or family that like require to actually get involved with ghosts.
That sounds really cool. You said the title of that was?
Mi e Roku-chan.
Okay.
M
Well,
I E R U K O.
is that all? Or you can even go hardcore horror. No, just
Oh, hardcore horror. Let's see. The one that I really wanted to mention, this is from Junji Ito, Amigara Faults. Yeah, it's you might remember it as the one with the mountain with people-shaped holes. Now this one doesn't go the extra mile as much as Junji's other works have gone the extra mile in this expressing things, but this one got into my head the most. No,
mm.
I don't know if it's because of the relatability of like the metaphor. I don't know. It's just it was just all that. So basically the story was these random holes that popping up in this mountain. So the internet and I guess people in general started to travel to the place because I don't know who started this, but they believed there was a hole that had that was made for them basically had their exact height and shape, and they could fall through that hole. It's a weird take on the call of the voids that you might get when you're on a tall building or tall surface, and you might feel like jumping. Um, non-suicidal, but yeah, but yeah. Uh, this the thing about the hosts is that they didn't know anything about them except that they were developed and they were very human shaped. So people still managed to jump in. You see characters break their mentors trying to get in. You see characters fight the urge to go in, but inevitably people would finally go through the holes. As it turned out, over sorry, spoilers. The holes kind of just streamlined you into a thin, like they got really thin at the other end, and then there's just this weird shape of a human being that comes through, and the way it uses the mountain uses gravity like to pull you through. It's kind of like a funnel would squeeze you into a certain shape, so you don't die, you don't get smashed or anything. You just go there and then your body starts to bend in ways it hasn't been before. You feel agonizing pain in slow motion because your body is slowly morphing to fit in the hard surface around you, and in the end you get out eat destroyed by the machine. And as much as Junji has this tendency to not explain his work, leaving it up for the general public to go crazy at, I saw that story as life just throwing you through a modes basically. Sometimes through career choices. It actually reminded what, when we had that conversation, Sonile, earlier about EO course and stuff, we it reminded me of this manga. So you're kind of given this perfect shape, which is like, oh my god, you do so well as an actress, or you do so well as a doctor. Emphasis on doctor, yeah, and then you go through this machine which churns you out, and then when you're in the middle, you can't crawl out. It's almost impossible to. You're powerless, and you just have to go through it. Before you know it, you're 50. You've made like two career choices you really regret, and you're not in the financial position you want to be in, and such is life.
Mm. That sounds creepy. I don't think I have reached on that volume. Been taking my precious time. But for me, I feel like one that I would recommend under Junji Ito's collection is Tommy. That's like my favorite one. I don't understand why, but I just really like Tommy. Tommy is mainly about this gorgeous, gorgeous girl who has, I guess, the ability to have men fall in love with her, but to some extent when they like get extremely obsessed with her and they like love her so much, they end up killing her, and they end up like chopping her body up and like throwing her somewhere. And this keeps happening in so many of the chapters that are there, and I really enjoyed, I don't know why, I just enjoyed that. And then the one that I liked specifically was the one where she she became, there was that girl who like was in the hospital and stuff, and then she got this transplant and it turned out that it was Tommy's, and then Tommy actually became her through that. And then there was that other one where it was like this man was like so obsessed with Tommy's hair that he like put it away in a box. And then his child, I guess, saw that. And then, she was like, oh, this hair is so freaking beautiful, you guys. And I don't know, like one strand like got stuck on like, her scalp and stuff. And then it started growing and stuff. And then Tommy actually became her in a way. Like, I don't know. It's extremely creepy, but that's what we're here for. We're here for the creeps, you know.
Exactly. You can never have too many Tomeis.
Yeah. They must be there right now. We just do not know. But besides that, do you have anything else that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to try and stray a bit away from Junji because he's a very dominant force in the horror manga industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned Miracle-chan already. You guys should definitely try out the original Devilman like manga. I remember the adaptation Devilman Crybaby. Yeah, the manga that's based off of is goes more in the direction of horror. Like it is the original. Okay, no, don't quote me on this, but superhero dark side of superhero trope, as the main character is literally a devil and does heroic things, quote unquote, but very grotesque and dark in his execution, kind of like Homelander. But I also mentioned, okay, you could also try Devilman G, which is like it's a newer version. Because some people do complain about the visuals of the original Devilman being too retro for them. Devilman G definitely looks a bit better. If this one, it's called Mermaid Saga. I found it in the wild. It was done by the same mangaka who did Inuyasha. Yeah, so basically I believe this is an actual like superstition in Japan somewhere, or was at least. So if you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you gain immortality, or you could die or become a grotesque monster who just roams the earth. Yeah, those are your three options. So the story, that's the setting, and the story actually follows this boy, man, child thing, who's who's forced into becoming immortal, so he could like be used for other people to become immortal. Sorry, the rules are very unclear when humans are getting involved.
Yeah.
Basically, he has forced immortality, and people want to eat his skin, I guess. So he's on the search for another mermaid whose skin he can eat, I guess. I think that was a cure. Yeah, so he then stops being immortal. The twist is he also finds a mermaid who was tricked as well by her friends into becoming immortal because I believe if another mermaid eats an immortal mermaid's flesh, again, there's a lot of flesh eating here, they get to have eternal beauty or something. I guess that's immortality as well. Yeah, so the selfish desires of these people's, I want to say peers, causes them to have immortality, and it's actually a romance apparently between the two of them as they go and do their
I
journeys, trying
figured.
to not be immortal.
The moment you just mentioned those, like somebody else who was going through the same thing, I just knew that there was some sort of romance in there.
Ah, yes, in the unlikely setting. It feels like the author was like, okay, I'm gonna write a horror manga. I'm definitely going to write a horror manga. Oh, it's just romance.
Like that's the whole thing now. It's not horror anymore. It's just two people falling in love. But the whole eating each other thing with the mermaids and what it sounds quite creepy, I'm not gonna lie. And like there's a
Yeah,
possibility that you might actually end up being a monster if you like eat the flesh of like a mermaid. And people are still going on and doing that, knowing that there's a risk.
I don't know why people want to live so long, but
it,
the
it's
appeal's there.
never necessary to be honest. Okay.
Oh, I just remembered. I Last one, yes. The drifting classroom, which was what was this thing that came out? There's an adaptation that came out like winter of 2021. I can't remember what it was called, but it featured the school like disappearing, and then it just spawned in this abyss. It was dark everywhere. It was a floating school, and then the kids who were in the school started to develop special abilities. But this the story was way more. The story outside the abilities was kind of more interesting. Anyway, there's a horror take on the same thing, although this one predates that one. Obviously, it's called the Drifting Classroom, and this one's more of a Lord of the Flies type of story, where the whole school gets transported, teachers and students, and they start to the same thing. The kids get special abilities, except the teachers start to exploit the kids, and it gets violent really fast, and there's murdering on both from both parties. And it kind of it takes a cabin fever to the next extreme. Out in the middle of nowhere, there's just rocky terrain everywhere. The other food and resources is in one place, and it surfaces them.
What's the name of that one?
The drifting classroom.
I don't know why at first I thought you said assassination classroom.
Oh wow.
I was going to get extremely confused. But that sounds really cool. Surely check it out. I'm going to say, I recommend Berserk to people, but I recently just started reading the manga. I wasn't going to start with the the anime. I don't know why. I just started to read the manga instead. So I guess I could recommend that to people. But I don't know how exactly I would best explain it. I honestly haven't reached that far into the manga to actually start explaining it to people. But just know there's like a guy with a big sword roaming around trying to get back his sanity and all that. Um,
You,
but I
you mean you
guess,
haven't?
sorry.
You mean you haven't watched the original?
No, I made the decision to actually just read the manga and not watch anything. I don't know why. And so, like, each time I'm reading, I always just play the Guts theme just to, just to have a feel of it actually, playing out in my head. Um, I guess something that I would recommend is something that I'm also currently reading. It's called I Am a Hero. And so I think this is the one where this guy is, there's where he is apparently. There's like is it a zombie apocalypse? I'm not really sure if I'm going to explain this right. But there's like a zombie apocalypse and he has a gun and like weapons and stuff. But then the plot twist is that he is schizophrenic. And so yeah, you could imagine how that plays out. Is he seeing
That
things
sounds interesting.
or is is he seeing things or is it actually happening? So that's I Am a Hero. I hope it's the one. Honestly, can't remember, but I hope it's the one. Yeah. So I think that's all for recommendations on my end.
Oh,
Unless
neat.
you have like a list. No, not a list, but unless you have like something else you want to like close with concerning like recommendations.
Oh, I guess I'll close with horror anime. You see, now I will state, and I have to say this at least once publicly. The Junji Ito like adaptation, the collection adaptation was the it did not do him justice. It sucked basically as a horror. In fact, you should read it. I mean, you should like go watch it after
I'm
reading
not even
the
going to
manga.
do that. I feel like it's going to ruin the version of Ginger Ale that I have in my head because I saw something for how is it Netflix was going to introduce Tommy, and I saw the trailer and I was like, please no, let's not. I feel like most of the people that actually try to adapt his collection don't do it justice. Like, let's just
True.
leave everything for imagination, to be
They're currently
honest.
adapting Uzumaki, so yeah, hold on to your socks for that. Yeah, so honorable mentions in anime that I feel you guys should check out. I won't give too much exposition on any of them. So we have Hellgirl, which is a freaking classic in horror. You should definitely go check that one out. It's episodic, or sorry, is that even the right word here? Anyway, basically every episode is about someone who is supposed to go to hell because they made a pact with the girl to make someone else go to hell. Like that's the catch. So she can help you get revenge, but as the payment, you kind of also have to go with her. Yeah, then Helsing Ultimate, I don't know if it counts as horror. You guys who are sensitive to blood and stuff, this is horror for you. Yeah, Helsing Ultimate, which is more on the action side, but there's all vampire blood, swearing, and everything bad you've probably imagine. Next is Shiki. Shiki is one of the few vampire anime I've actually enjoyed in my lifetime, and it does it really well. Like a horror with vampires in it is not even something I could imagine, but Shiki actually does it nicely, and I appreciate it so much for that. Uh, let's see, yeah, check out When They Cry, Angel's Egg, uh, Corpse Party. Oh, I should also mention. Oh no, this is technically a spoiler, but go watch School Live. Just go watch School Live. I'll just say that. And also Ghost Stories because of the English dub. And lastly, this one
That's
deserves an award.
comedy. That's purely comedy.
Shh, 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 shh. Anyway,
Like guys,
lastly,
don't watch it. Don't watch it in sub. Watch it in dub. Like I said, that's going to make your day, your night, your year, the rest of your life. Probably. It's just so unnecessary.
for real, it's a Hall of Famer. Although it probably would get cancelled if it was out there today. Yeah. So the last adaptation, which is a pretty like it is artistic for something that's horror related. The Woman Who Stole Fingers. I am not too sure if you've seen it or anything. If, in fact, if you haven't, the better. It's nice to experience the first time. So I will not give
Mm,
you any exposition. I'll just say a child who had let go of his mother's hand, and it was taken. I think I phrased that creepy sentence properly. Anyway, yeah.
what do
So
you
some
mean
weird stuff
taken?
happens. Shh, 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 shh. Go watch it. The
Why does
title is
she
The
sound
Woman Who
like
Stole Fingers. Get creative.
why does she sound like she would be Kira's wife or something? Beside his stealing hands,
Wow.
like killing people, and then she'd be stealing her fingers.
I see the connection. I see the connection. Although you'd appreciate Yoshikage Kira in comparison to this.
It sounds extremely creepy. So I guess so.
Oh, that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoy the manga.
Yeah. So thank you, Kumi-san, for like, giving us so many recommendations. We're going to check them out, guys. Please just read something that's horror for once. Leave that slice of life. Leave the romance. Leave it and go to the horror side of life. You won't regret it. You probably will, but like you won't after some time. Anyways, that brings us to the end of our week's episode. Today we were discussing horror, and we hope you loved it so very much. Be sure to follow Nerdotaku on Facebook. I'm guessing we do have a Facebook. On
Yes, yes.
Twitter, also YouTube, Instagram, and be sure to join our Discord server as well. You can talk to people about basically anything. There's like a channel for everything you could ever possibly imagine. And I think Kumi will give us his social handles where you could find him.
Okay. I'm generally identified as Dark Matrix on Twitter and Instagram. I'm also looming around on the Discord server if you really need to find me. You can also catch me on the upcoming web series, Nerdotaku and Friends.
Yeah, so be sure to check out Nerdotaku and Friends as well, you know. And also, Webtoons has a Twitter account and an Instagram account, and every Saturday on Twitter we have a space. So yeah, be sure to join every freaking space that we ever have and interact with, you know, people. and like-minded people. So I have been your host, Sonile. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Abigail Sonile, or Instagram, it's Baby Doll. I cannot remember the actual like username. I don't know how people actually ever remember that. But yeah, that's I think that's it from us. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy your day or your night or your week. Or bye, guys.